my weekend hike to turn into a true horror story. But the moment I pulled up to that lonely USA trailhead tucked deep in the pine woods, my camping gear rattling in the back seat, I swear the air itself whispered that something out here had been waiting for me, or listening to ASMR 400 for found. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I rolled up to the trailhead just past sundown, the kind of dusky glow. The sky bleeds orange into purple, and you feel like the woods are breathing heavier than you. Gravel crunched under my tires, and the old wooden sign for whispering Pines Trail leaned sideways like it was tired of standing there. Since the 70s, the letters faded but still hanging on, like an old diner sign on Route 66. When I cut the engine, the silence hit me harder than I expected. No highway hum, no cicadas, no breeze through the pines, just a heavy quiet that felt like it was watching me back. I opened the truck door and the creak echoed down the path like I just slammed a church door. During service, I kept telling myself it's just a trail, just some American woods, nothing I haven't seen before. But my gut had that twisty feeling like when you walk into a bar, realize everyone stopped talking to size you will be slung my backpack over my shoulder. It felt heavier than it should have, maybe nerves, maybe more, and I walked toward the sign. There was a little note stapled crooked right under the word Trailhead. It was just lined notebook paper, edges ripped messy, and written in Sharpie that bled through the back. It said, "Keep moving, do not listen if it calls you." I laughed under my breath, like one of those dry American chuckles you give when something feels off, but you don't want to admit it to yourself. Dirt path stretched out in front of me, darker than it should have been at that hour. The sun hadn't even finished dropping, but the trees were swallowing light like a black hole. Every step forward felt like stepping into a room wasn't invited into. I could hear the crunch of gravel under my boots, louder than my heartbeat, and I swear every time I moved, something behind me shifted just out of sync. Like a delayed echo, I tried to shake it off, talking to myself, like any American hiker would, just muttering, "All right, buddy, it's just a trail, no big deal. People hike this all the time." Some mom from Omaha glibly brought her 3 kids here last weekend and nothing happened. But that didn't change the fact that the further I walked, the more the quiet pressed in like a pillow over my first trail. Curved left and opened into a small clearing just big enough for a couple tents. There was a fire ring made from big stones, blackened with soot, but no sign of ashes, no sign of wood. It was too clean, like someone erased the memory of a fire. I stood there a second, rubbing my arms even though the air was warm and humid. Then I heard it, the faintest whistle, like someone trying to get a dog's attention. He froze boots, planted backpack, digging into my shoulders. I wanted to say, "Hey, who's there?" in that casual American way you call out across a backyard barbecue. But my throat locked up. The whistle came again, softer, longer, carrying through the trees like wind. Through a bottle, I thought of the note stapled to the sign. "Do not listen if it calls you." And for the first time since stepping out of the truck, I realized my hands were shaking. I tightened my fists and pushed forward past the fire ring, down deeper into the trail, pines leaning over the path, branches swaying even though the air felt still and heavy like a basement after a summer storm. And the deeper I went, the more I felt the gravel under my boots turning softer, looser. like walking on ground that didn't want me there. And then just as sudden as the slammed door, I heard footsteps behind me. Close, heavy, deliberate, like somebody matching my pace step for step. I spun around hard in my throat, but the trail was empty. The clearing behind me stretched quiet. Nothing moved, no breeze, no animals. No people, just me and that gnawing whisper of sound that wasn't supposed to be Teresa. So I turned back. I kept moving faster, shoulders hunched like waiting for someone to grab me from behind. Every American bone in my body telling me to turn. Brown, get back in the truck and drive to the nearest diner, order a coffee, and forget this trail existed. But another part of me, a darker part, whispered, keep going, and so I did. The trail dipped a little and curved tight to the left, and that's where I saw it, standing just off the path like a forgotten marker, the old signpost. It wasn't the main trailhead sign. This one looked older, maybe even older than the park itself. Weathered gray, wood cracked and leaning at a strange angle, with nails sticking out like crooked teeth. It had a metal plate bolted to the top, once painted green but now flaking down to rust, with letters that had almost melted away under time. I squinted hard, holding my breath, reading what was left. I swear I could make out the word South Spur, and under it scratched in with something sharper than a pocket knife, where the words go back while you still can. Grooves weren't sloppy. They were carved deep, deliberate, like whoever did it wanted the warning to stay forever. I ran my hand over the grooves. The wood felt damp, sticky, almost like sap or maybe something else. My fingers tingled and I pulled back fast, wiping them on my jeans like I just touched a stove. Toby kept telling myself, kids do this all the time, carving dumb warnings, trying to spook the next hiker, teenagers from town. They come up here drinking cheap beer, leaving scary little messages. That's tricking as it gets right, but my chest tightened anyway, like the air around the sign was heavier, thicker, harder to swallow. We noticed more than down, lower edged. Near the base of the post, little lines and circles stacked in rows. At first I thought maybe just doodles or tally marks, like somebody keeping score, but the closer I leaned, the more it looked like eyes, not cartoon eyes, real eyes, scratched with detail. Kind you see in old carvings at roadside attractions, staring back out of them. Dozens of them, all pointing forward down the trail, as if watching whoever dared to pass. He stepped back, boot crunched loud in the silence, and when I did, the whistle came again, faint and higher this time, like it was waiting for me to turn my head toward the trees on the right. But I remember the note at the trailhead, don't listen. I shoved my hands into my pockets like a kid trying to keep from stealing candy. I kept walking, straight eyes forward. The trail narrowed here, roots twisted up from the ground like old hands trying to trip me, and the deeper I went, the more I swore. I could hear whispers, not words, just the shape of voices pressing around me, like a crowd in a football stadium bathroom, all murmur, no meaning. My trickin' brain wanted to decode it. Maybe it was just wind, maybe just leaves. But the sound crawled right into my ears and settled there. After a while, I turned back out of nerves. Wanted to see if the old signpost was still visible, but it wasn't. Even though I hadn't gone that far, it should have been right there behind me, standing crooked in the dim light. But all I saw was more trails stretching empty into dark nothingness. Like the wood swallowed the post, hollow me stomach knotted up. I pulled my backpack straps tighter and kept moving trembling, forcing my boots to hit steady like a march. Like a soldier telling himself, just keep on down the road, buddy, one step to step, don't stop now. Not here, not with that sound crawling in your head. Trees pressed closer overhead, darker than before, and I caught the faint glint of something. Hammered into another tree to my left, a rusty nail bent downward, holding a strip of leather. So dried and cracked it looked like a snakeskin someone had left behind. I reached up and touched it. The leather crumbled under my finger. A sharp sting shot through my hand like a static shock. I yanked back fast, heart racing. Because for a second, I swear, I heard my name whispered clear in the same whistle. Tone I'd been hearing all along, my whole body stiffened because I hadn't told anyone. Was coming here, no calls, no texts, no posts, just me and my truck. My stupid idea to clear my head on a quiet trail, and yet something in the trees already knew me, already calling like it had been waiting. She stumbled forward, boots dangling in roots, breathing too fast, trying to shake off that crawling feeling in my chest. The trail bent again, and there in the distance I saw another marker, smaller this time, not a post but a wooden arrow nailed to a tree pointing deeper in. The red letters painted on so faded they looked brown. It just said, stay on path and buddy. I swear to you the paint wasn't dripping down like old paint normally does. It was running up like the letters were bleeding in rivers. They wanted to turn around. I swear every American instinct in me wanted to head back to the safety of a diner neon sign. Waitress topping off my coffee, a plate of fries, something normal and warm and bright, but my boots kept moving, my shoulders kept hunching forward and deep in my chest. That quiet whisper kept pushing me further into Whispering Pines Trail, like it was home. And the strangest thing was I started to feel like I was walking downhill even though the ground looked flat, like the whole forest was tilting me forward into something I couldn't see yet. The sun was slipping hard now behind the pines, and I knew I had to set up camp before the woods swallowed every bit of light. So I found a flat spot just off the trail, a little clearing barely wide enough for a tent. The dirt here was strange though, soft like it had been turned over too many times, as if somebody or something had been digging here. Long before me, I brushed away some leaves with my boot, and the soil underneath was darker, almost black, wetter than it should have been, and late. So Mary dropped my pack and pulled out the tent poles, hands fumbling more than usual. I kept telling myself, it's just nerves, man, you've pitched a tent 1,000 times before. But every snap of the pole, every tug of the canvas felt louder then. It should have been echoing off the trees like hammer strikes. I finally got it standing half decent, and threw my sleeping bag inside the shadows, stretching longer across the ground, like the trees themselves were leaning closer to listen when I lit my little camp lantern. The glow reached only a few feet before it got eaten by the dark. I sat there cross-legged, cracking open a protein bar, chewing slow, listening hard for any sound. At first there was nothing, then slowly the woods came. Alive, but not the way they're supposed to, not with crickets, not with owls. Instead, it was soft tapping like fingers drumming on hollow wood, and it came from all around me. Untapped then, two, then three, as if the whole forest had agreed to keep time with each theory. Tried to shake it off, muttering in that American way, all right, pal. It's just branches falling, maybe squirrels, maybe some dumb raccoon. But deep down I knew raccoons don't tap in rhythm, and the sound started to sync with My heart beats beating when I breathe fast or slowing when I try to hold still. It felt like the forest was inside my chest, pressing down against my ribs. He climbed into the tent, zipped it shut tight even though the air was thick, humid, sticky against my skin. I lay back staring at the nylon ceiling, trying to breathe normal. Tapping outside kept on slower, now softer, like knuckles knocking politely on a front door. And then I heard the whistle again, drawn out like someone calling a dog, only this time it was right outside the tent, flapped me whole body locked up. I didn't even breathe, my ears strained so hard I swear I could hear my own blood rushing. Wanted to yell, get the hell away, in that rough American bark we use when strangers pushed too close, but my throat wouldn't open. It just sat heavy, full of fur. The whistle stretched long, then broke into something worse, a low hum, like a voice pressed against the fabric of the tent, whisper humming a tune I almost recognized, like an old lullaby I've remembered from childhood. My mom used to sing something close enough to make my stomach drop because it felt impossible that the woods could hum back a song. From my own past it reached slow for the pocket knife in my pack blade. Small but sharp, I kept it tight in my hand, lying perfectly still. The humming faded, the tapping stopped, the woods fell heavy, silent again. And in that silence came a new sound. The zipper on the tent tugging upward, just a tiny inch, not fast, not loud, just a careful tug, like fingers testing the teeth of the zipper. He snapped up, knife ready, and shouted hey in the hardest voice I could muster, shaking with fear and American bravado. But when I ripped open the flap, nothing stood there, no shadow, no figure, just a trail stretching back into the trees, darker than dark. Me breath came ragged. I stumbled out, boots crunching on soil, turning circles, lantern swinging in my hand. Every tree looked the same, every branch reaching like arms, and then I saw it carve into the dirt right outside the tent were fresh lines. For straight tallies scratched deep in the fifth crossed through them like someone marking days. On a prison wall he spun around, fast lantern beam jerking over bark and shadow. But nothing moved, nothing breathed, yet the tally marks were right there, crisp, sharp, like they'd been carved only seconds before he backed into the tent, dragging the lantern, and my pack inside, zipping it all the way this time, double-checking every inch of fabric like it could actually keep me safe from whatever was out there. I lay awake, gripping the knife until my hand ached, staring into the dark with the lantern low, until its glow finally sputtered out and I was left with nothing but the sound of my heartbeat and the creeping sense that I wasn't spending this night alone. And just before my eyes grew heavy, I heard it again, that same whistle, but softer this time, drifting through the pines like it had always been there and always would be. Morning came late, slower than it should have, dragging itself through the treetops like a hungover drifter, and when I finally unzipped the tent, the air outside was thick with fog that clung low around the pines, curling around my boots as if the forest didn't want me to see too far ahead. I stretched stiff, sore from sleeping in fear. My hand still tight around the knife I never let go of all night. The tally marks in the dirt were still there, 5 clean scratches staring up at me in the fog as if waiting for me to notice. I rubbed my eyes thinking maybe they'd fade, maybe it was a dream. But no, they sat sharp, fresh, untouched, like somebody had carved them. While I slept, I kicked dirt over them fast, like covering up a mistake at work, but the image stuck in my head. No matter what he shoulders tense, eyes darting from shadow to shadow. As I shoved gear into the bag, I told myself I was heading back out to the truck. Maybe grab a diner breakfast, strong black coffee. Eggs greasy enough to remind me of home, but something in my chest pulled the other way. Like a magnet dragging iron shavings deeper down the trail, so I walked further, boots sinking soft in damp soil, fog hugging low until the sound of footsteps echoed back, not mine, heavier, slower, crunching steady on the trail behind. I froze my throat tight, listening hard, and when I turned my head, a shape slowly stepped into view. Through the mist it was a man, tall, weary, wearing a faded red flannel shirt, buttoned wrong like he hadn't noticed, and jeans ripped at the knee, mud caked heavy on his boots. He had a gray beard, long, scraggly, his hair stuck out wild from under a baseball cap. So sun-bleached I couldn't read the logo. He carried no pack, no lantern, just a crooked walking stick that looked more like a branch. Yanked straight from the ground, stopped a few feet from me, his eyes pale blue rimmed red. Like he hadn't slept in years, his voice cracked low when he spoke, the kind of gravelly tone you hear from an old American trucker at the end of a 20-yard drive. And he said you shouldn't be hearing me, mouth went dry, but I forced words out anyway. Just the way folks do when they're nervous. I laughed short and said, "Morning to you too, buddy, just out for a hike, thought I'd catch some fresh air." He didn't laugh. He didn't even blink. He just tapped his stick twice on the dirt and leaned closer, whispering, "Path don't end where you think it ends, turn back while you still can." He tried to brush it off, grinning like I was the kind of guy who doesn't scare easy. Though inside my chest rattled, he must have seen it because he stepped closer, his breath hot and sour, like rot, and whispered softer, "Now don't listen when it calls your name, don't answer when it hums, stay on the path but never trust the ground. You're walking on me," skin prickled cold even in the thick humid air. I wanted to ask him what he meant. I wanted to press him for answers, but before I could, he lifted his stick, pointed down the trail, and said, "The pines don't let you leave. Once they've got your scent." Then he turned slow and walked straight into the fog. On the opposite side of the trail, his boots silent this time, like he never touched the ground, and Allie waited there a long minute, maybe longer, calling out, "Hey, wait up, sir, maybe I can walk back with you." But no answer came, no crack of brush, no crunch of boots, just fog shifting like smoke until he was gone. Finally pushed forward because something in me wouldn't let me turn back no matter what he said. The trail wound tighter now, pines crowding closer overhead, branches knitting into a ceiling so thick it blocked out most of the light. I could feel the weight of the warning in my chest, but every step deeper felt like I was already too far gone. As the fog thinned a little, I saw them again, marks on the trees this time. Not just telly scratches, but full carvings, faces stretched long mouths, wide open and silent, screams gouged deep into the bark, some fresh wet sap oozing down like tears. Others faded old, but still visible, all of them staring back at me as if watching to see if I'd heed the stranger's words. He reached out, brushing one with my fingers, sticky sap coating my skin. Then that second the whistle came again, clearer, louder, closer than it had ever been. Before drifting through the pines, carrying my own name this time, spoken perfect and low, he froze, every muscle tight. Knife slipping sweaty in my hand, the stranger's warning buzzing in my ears, "Don't listen, don't answer. But my own name hung there in the mist, sweet and soft like my mother calling me home from playing in the yard when I was 10 years old. Me throat open like it wanted to answer on its own. But I bit down hard, whispering through clenched teeth, not today, not like this. I shoved forward deeper into the trail, praying the old man was wrong, praying I could still walk out when I wanted. But every step felt heavier, like the forest had already made up its mind. The trail kept pulling me forward like a belt cinched tight around my chest, no matter how many times I thought about turning back. My boots stayed planted, heavy, moving step by step, like the ground was guiding me instead of the other way around. The fog thinned, but the trees pressed tighter until the air felt thick with pitch and pine, like walking through a chimney. The stranger's warning beat in my skull. Turn back while you still can, but my legs didn't listen. After a while I noticed the ground tilting the slope so slight at first it could have been my imagination. But then it grew more obvious, each step rolling me downhill, like I was on some invisible conveyor belt. And what made it worse was that my eyes told me the trail was still flat, straight, level, but my body swore it was not. I felt it in my knees, in the pull of my pack, in the way my stomach rose and sank like riding down the first dip of a roller coaster. Stopped once, crouched low, pressing my palm to the dirt, trying to prove to myself it was even, and sure enough the surface felt flat. But when I stood again, my balance tipped forward, almost pitching me onto my face. The forest wanted me moving down whether I liked it or not. The air grew colder with each step, not crisp fall cold, but damp basement cold, clinging to my clothes, chilling my skin beneath layers. And every breath came out thicker, clouding the space in front of me like smoke. I could swear I smelled something buried under the pine pitch, something sour, metallic like rust or old Easy slowed my pace. But the forest didn't like that. The trees grown low, their trunks creaking like floorboards under weight, and that steady tapping sound returned from the night before, faster now, sharper, as if keeping tempo to push me forward. My chest burned tight, sweat chilled against my back, but I kept going because every time I thought about stopping, the sound came harder, quicker, driving me like a drumlinette. Deeper I went, the stranger the path grew, roots looping higher, twisting into shapes that looked too much like hands reaching up, grabbing ankles, grabbing knees. And the rocks glistened wet, though no stream, no creek ran anywhere near the stones, slick as if something breathed moisture right out of the earth itself. I slipped once, caught myself against a trunk, and when I looked up, my breath locked. The bark was carved with the words, dozens of them written in block letters, gouged deep messages overlapping like graffiti. On an alley wall they said things like "let me out" and "wrong way" and "no end." Each message was signed with a name, some scratched hard, others faint. One of them was my name, clean, fresh, carved like it had been waiting me. Stomach dropped, I staggered back, shaking my head, muttering, "No way, no way, no way, just some dumb coincidence. Some kid with the same name as me." But my knees didn't believe it. They shook hard enough to rattle my teeth. Tapping grew louder, then paused, replaced by the whistle. Long and slow it curled through the trees like smoke wrapping around my ears, dragging me down. And that sound, I swore I could hear words soft tucked inside the note, saying deeper, come deeper. Me teeth clenched, I shoved forward faster, half running, down the slope that wasn't a slope, every step heavier, every breath harder. The trail bending, twisting underfoot like it wanted me dizzy. Then I noticed something worse, my watch, the hand spinning slow, then fast, then freezing backward like time itself was sliding around off the rails, and when I checked the sky through breaks in the canopy, it was stuck dim, never darker, never lighter, just the same twilight. Our frozen me throat went dry. The stranger's words hammering again, never trust the ground you're walking on, and for the first time, I thought maybe I really was sliding, not down earth, not down rock, but down something else altogether, something that looked like a trail, but wasn't anymore. Me boots scuffed sudden against, wide opening ahead, the trees breaking just enough to show a clearing. And the soil there was darker, blacker, wet with something thicker than rain pooling in shallow pits. In the center of that clearing stood another sign, this one even older. Wood splintered, half rotted, the letters burned and not painted. It said South Spur Descendant. Just under those words, carved crude deep, was another line, one sentence that made my whole chest tighten. Don't let it follow you back, whistlehead. Then sharp and close like it was right behind me. When I spun around, breath hot, blade tight in my fist, the fog parted for just a moment. I saw them, not one figure, not the old man, but three tall shadows standing between the trees watching. Not moving, not breathing, just there waiting, and my heart knew the descent had already started. The clearing sat heavy in front of me, soil black, slick shining under the half-light sky. Frozen between day and night, the burned words on the rotten sign digging into my skull. Don't let it follow you back, my hand squeezed tight on the knife, though I knew the blade was nothing compared to whatever stood waiting in the fog behind. I could still see them, three tall shadows stretched thin like telephone poles along, for their own shape, heads tilted as if curious, silent, no crunch of soil, no rustle of pine needles, just a ray. Forced myself to step into the clearing, boots sinking shallow in the wet dirt. It gave under my weight like stepping into old carpet, soaked through with water, and each step left deep prints filling slow. The dark liquid, not quite water, not quite mud. I kept moving, chest tight, air thick, tasting copper, like a mouthful of blood. Though I hadn't bitten my tongue, I hadn't cut my lip, it was just there. In the air itself, me eyes kept sliding back to the tree line where the shadows stood, but every time I blinked they were in a new position, closer, maybe taller, maybe leaning forward as if they stretched with each breath I took. I wanted to shout, say back in that loud American bark we use when bluffing against something bigger, but my voice wouldn't rise. It stuck low tight in my throat, like the forest pressed it down before it could leave it. Tapping started again, faint at first, then building fast like knuckles drumming on. Hollow with the sound circled the clearing, not from one place but from everywhere, rising, falling like 1,000 hands, tapping out the same pattern. My heart thumped to match it. My boots hit the ground to match it, the forest pulling me into its rhythm until it felt wrong to breathe off. BD tried to step out of sync, dragging my foot slower, but the sound warped high, sharp like nails on glass, and my head rang hot pain, buzzing through my ears until I stumbled back into step, and then pain eased quick like reward. The shadows leaned closer now, shoulders bending, bones bending wrong, their outlines sharp but faces blurred like smoke, like heat off asphalt. I lifted the lantern trying to see clearer, and the light bent round them. Swallowed whole, the glow falling flat on the dirt, never touching their forms then. One of them shifted sudden, stepping forward into the clearing, and the soil under its foot didn't sink, didn't stir, just stayed dry, untouched like it wasn't really stepping at all. It turned its head slow toward me, and though it had no clear face, I felt the weight of eyes locking on mine. Cold pressure drilling into the back of my skull, my knees buckled, and for a moment the world tilted hard like the whole clearing flipped sideways. I dropped to my hands, breathing faster, sticking to my palms. When I looked up, the other two shadows were gone. Only one remained standing too close, leaning down, stretching long across me, its outline shaking with each breath I took like it was feeding off the air. Between my lips he dragged myself up fast, stumbling back. But no matter how far I moved, the shadow never changed. Distance always the same, arm's length. Way not closer, not further, locked into me. I swung the knife while the blind slashed through the air, but the blade passed clean, nothing. There no resistance, just me slicing emptiness, and falling hard on my sitteth, tapping stopped dead silent. So fast the echo kept ringing in my ears, then came a whisper, not whistle, not hum, but whisper, low, thick voice curling up from the soil under me, saying minimy skin when ice my legs kicked, pushing me back toward the rotten side. My shoulders hitting the wood-hard splinters, digging deep in for a breath. I thought maybe that would stop it, maybe the sign was a barrier, some warning meant to protect. But the shadow tilted its head slow, and the whisper rose again. This time clearer, stretched out into words, let it in the ground beneath my boots. Rippled wet soil shifting like waves, rising up to my ankles. Clinging thick, sucking hard, pulling me down. The more I struggled, the tighter it held, black mud climbing my legs like arms. Dragging me deeper, the shadow leaned lower, so close I could smell nothing, just emptiness, pure absence, colder than air itself. He thought of the stranger, his broken voice telling me the pines don't let you leave once they've got your scent. I realized I was sinking into more than mud. I was sinking into the forest itself, letting it pull me under, letting it mark me as one of its own. I screamed, raw throat tearing, begging, no, 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 but the sound didn't echo, it didn't carry it. Just dropped dead like the wood swallowed it before it left my mouth, and then in the thick dark edges of my vision I saw movement, not the shadow, but faces, pale faces, dozens pressed against the ground just under the soil eyes. Wide mouths moving in silent screams, their features distorted like waterlogged. Photos, each face locked open as if frozen mid-cry, their eyes all fixed on me. Watching, waiting, soil let go sudden, my legs free, and I fell forward, gasping, crawling hands tearing against rough earth, the shadow still there, standing the same distance. Always the same distance, never close, never far, its whisper. Following mine, he stumbled, a bright knife shaking in my grip, heart slamming. I turned back to the trail, the only way forward, deeper into the descent, and when I looked back once, where the clearing was empty, no shadow, no faces, no tapping, just quiet pine needles swaying against the sky that still hadn't changed, still frozen twilight holding me in place. I knew the shadows weren't gone, they were only walking with me. Now, the trail ahead narrowed again, roots high twisting over each other like ribs in the earth. Fog thinning but not leaving, just enough to blur the edges of the world, my boots heavy wet. the black soil in my chest hollow with a whisper mine, still pulsing there like a drumbeat. I kept walking, though every part of me wanted to sit down, scream, quit, give up. But something deeper, older, kept dragging me onward after what felt like hours. Though the sky never shifted darker, never lighter, I came across a cluster of gear sprawled across the side of the trail. First a dented blue cooler lid open inside empty, but for dark stains dried sticky. Second a backpack torn down the middle zippers, broken straps frayed like something had ripped it apart with claws, and then scattered all around sleeping bags, water bottles, clothes, small things that didn't belong to me, crouched picking up a boot half buried in leaves size. Small worn out laces snapped, the sole still warm when I touched it, like someone had left it only minutes before I froze, heart banging, whispering to myself, like any American alone on a bad road, saying maybe they just left, maybe they're close. Maybe it's nothing, but deep down I knew it was everything a little. Farther down I found the first journal, a spiral notebook, half soaked, the ink bleeding. But some words still sharp, written hard, like the hand was shaking. I read slow. The entry start a date to lost the trail. We keep circling back, same signpost, same. Clearing, can't get out. Jessica swears she hears her mom calling her name. At night told her it's the wind, but I don't believe. Edie shut the book fast, my stomach cold. Then opened it again, forcing myself to read the next page, the letters darker. Pressed deep into the paper, day 4. Something's following us, 3 tall figures, never closer, never farther, no matter how fast we move. When I close my eyes, I hear them tapping. I think they're waiting for us to stop. The page tore under my grip. I hand shaking hard, I stuffed the journal back into the pack, like hiding it would erase the words. But more lay scattered everywhere. Another notebook smaller with drawings, crude faces carved into trees, long stretched figures. Shadows drawn tall, but stick figure campers. The caption under one said it's inside the ground, he shoved it away. Fast breath ragged, scanning the woods around me, and that's when I saw the tents. 3 of them pitched sloppy near the tree line, nylon torn, shredded. Stakes ripped from the soil, one was collapsed on itself, half buried under branches. Another stood open wide, the zipper ripped down, the flap waving soft in the still air. I stepped closer, boots crunching soft into ash black, ash spread in a ring. Like they had tried to build a fire, but something stamped it out, left it cold inside the tent. Lay more clothes, socks, shirts scattered wet with dirt, and in the corner half covered by the flap, a phone cracked screen still glowing dim with the battery. Almost gone, I lifted it slow, the light pale on my fingers and on the lock screen. A single notification kept flashing, message unread. It said, "Don't answer." Edie dropped the phone. Fast, heart slamming harder than ever because I knew it wasn't from them. It was from meth. Tapping started again, light faint from deeper in the trees. With it came the whistle, soft, whining, slow, and inside the whistle I swore. I heard a girl's voice crying, calling out, help me, please." It sounded human. So close, so real, but the note stapled to the first sign burned in my head. "Don't listen if it calls you," and I clamped my hands over my ears, teeth grit, whispering to myself, "Don't answer, don't you dare answer." Still my body moved one step, then toward the sound, like a leash was tied to my ribs, dragging me out of the clearing. Away from the torn tents, my throat tried to open, my lips twitching, shaping the word hello. But I bit down hard, tasting iron blood sharp on my tongue, and the voice turned sharper to louder like it knew I was fighting it, and the journal words screamed back into me, never closer, never farther. When I spun quick lantern beams slicing the fog, I saw them again, the three shadows standing across the trail, lying in a row, tall, silent, stretched thin, their heads bent low, watching the tents. Like they were counting something, maybe knees buckled, I stumbled into the dirt. Staring hard, my knife shaking loose from my grip, landing blade down in the soil. The figures didn't move, not 1 inch, but I could feel the weight of them pressing heavy on my chest. In the hush between the whistle, I heard another sound, low, deep groaning, like the trees themselves speaking, and the ground under the torn tents rippled, slow rising, like something underneath was pushing upward, waiting to crawl out. He bolted forward, scooping up my knife, running past the camp. Without looking back, the shadows still locked in place behind me, but I knew they would follow. I knew they always would, my breath ragged, my boots pounding the dirt. And somewhere behind in the clearing, a voice cried my name again, stretched sweet, soft like home, and I kept running deeper because the trail would not let me turn back. The forest grew tighter, the path winding crooked as if it had been drawn by a shaking hand, every step heavier, the soil softer, clinging to my boots, my breath ragged. With the taste of copper and pine, I pushed forward, trying not to look back, but no matter how far I went, the feeling pressed into my spine that the shadows walked just behind me. Always the same distance, never closer, never farther. After a while, I began to notice the trail repeating the same turn, the same knot of roots, the same crooked stump over and over, like I was stuck inside some loop. My boots crunching the same patch of dirt until I recognized my own prints there, half filled with black water. Each time I passed, it felt heavier, slower, like the forest was dragging me deeper in circles. Journals from the lost campers rattled in my head, days marked with tallies, voices calling them by name. Never closer, never farther. I tried to steady myself, muttering American words of comfort like hang tough, keep walking, push on, but the wood swallowed them quick, made them taste hollow on my tongue. Within came the tapping again, steady this time, louder, matching my footsteps, step for step. When I slowed, it slowed. When I ran, it ran, always just behind, always just enough to remind me I wasn't alone. I broke into a sprint, boots pounding, breath tearing sharp through my throat, the fog whipping past, but no matter how hard pushed, the sound never faded, never fell away. Me chest ached fire hot, my legs heavy and still. The path kept circling, looping back until the crooked stump stood ahead again. The same torn roots, the same prints of my boots, and I dropped to my knees, screaming raw into the soil. But the forest gave no echo, no release, just silence waiting. Then I felt it, the air colder, heavier, pressing down on the back of my neck like a hand, and in that moment, one of them stood closer, closer than ever before. I turned, slow, dread thick in my chest. And there it was, not three now, just one standing, only feet away, its outline sharp, its head tilted, its shoulders twitching, as if struggling to hold shape. My lantern beam slid over it, but the light bent sideways, swallowed, leaving only the black outline. I stumbled backward, knife raised, weak, shaking. As I did, the whistle cut sharp through the pines, louder than it had ever been. The sound curling into words, come home, and in the whistle I heard my father's voice. the exact drawl, the same tone he used when calling me back from the yard as a kid. It was perfect to perfect me. Throat open, I'd almost answered, almost cried out. But the old stranger's warning cracked through my skull. Don't answer when it hums, don't answer when it calls, and I bit my tongue hard, tasting blood, forcing the word down until it hurt. The shadow twitched closer, still, head jerking like a broken puppet, its shape warping, stretching, tall, then short, then tall again. My stomach flipped sick, but I turned and ran again, deeper into the loop. Time bent sideways, minutes, hours, days. I couldn't tell. My watch spun useless, the sky froze in twilight. But my body screamed exhaustion, my shoulders heavy, my throat dry. I felt more than one, skin tearing against roots, knees scraping dirt, but still still I ran, because every time I slowed, the shadows whispered, slithered closer, mine minions. I tripped hard, landing in a hollow, my lantern smashing glass, scattering flame out in a hiss. And for a second the dark swallowed me whole, pitch black, deeper than night. I thought it had me, thought the forest swallowed me. But then my lighter sparked, dim flame flickering, and in that weak glow I saw them, faces pale, hundreds pressed into the trees, bark peeled back like skin, their mouths open wide as if screaming, eyes wide, hollow, all of them watching me, their lips moving slow, forming one word again. Begin. Rooney stumbled up, screaming, hoarse, fire flicker shaking in my hand. I bolted the path, whining, looping, bending wrong the trees, clawing overhead, and behind me the tapping returned, now faster, louder, like 100 hands, beating hollow wood, the rhythm chasing, pushing, driving me forward, faster than my body could go, my chest burning, my heart ready to split. The forest stretched, endless, no end, no exit, the loop tightening like a noose, until I knew I wasn't running to escape anymore. I was running because it wanted me to. I was running because it was teaching me to follow its rhythm, step for step, until my body belonged to it, until my breath and my blood and my bones all matched the beating. Still the whistle followed, long and low, now layered with more voices than one, a chorus of mothers, fathers, friends, strangers, all crying my name, sweet pleading, come back, come. Oh man, the shadows ran with me always, they're never closer, never farther. The forest broke open sudden like a mouth gaping wide, and I stumbled out of the twisting trail into a space I hadn't seen before, a clearing so round, so perfect it felt wrong. The ground dipped shallow like a bowl, the soil darker, wetter, thick, but that same copper tang heavy in my lungs, and in the center sat a circle of stones, black, smooth, as if burned, polished by hands, or maybe by something older. The tapping stopped dead when I entered the silence, so loud it felt heavier than sound, pressing against my ears. He walked, slow boots sinking into soft dirt, every step pulling like quicksand. Faces still swam under the surface, pale eyes wide, mouths stretched, silent, screaming, rising and fading back down as if the ground breathed them and pulled them back. I forced myself not to look too close, but they stared anyway, each one tracking me with glassy eyes that didn't blink. Inside the stone circle lay remnants, a ring of gear-like offerings, piled messy, broken tents, sleeping bags, rotted backpacks, cracked lanterns, bones, then pale, bleached, stacked neat, as if arranged on purpose and carved into the stones were words burned deep, the same sentence over and over. We never left, we never left, we never left. He dropped to my knees, heart slamming the air, thick with rot, with sap, with rust. My fingers dug into the soil by accident, and when I pulled them free, the dirt clung dark, slick, dripping between my knuckles. Not mud, not water, but thicker, heavier, the smell iron sharp. Wiped it fast on my jeans, shaking my head, whispering to myself like a prayer. Get out, get out, get out. Then the whistle came low, long, drifting over the clearing, not from one side, not from the trees, but from the stones themselves, rising up out of the cracks and folds of carved words. It built louder, layered with voices, hundreds, thousands, each voice carrying a name, not just mine, but others to names I didn't know, names I have remembered. From old childhood friends long gone, names that clawed into my skull until my head spun. Shadows stepped from the tree line. 3 of them again, tall, stretched thin, their heads bent low, their arms swaying wrong angles, their outlines bending the twilight light like heat shimmer. They moved slow into the clearing, not walking, not gliding, but sliding like the air itself pushed them forward until they circled the stones, one on each side, leaving me caught in the middle. Me knife shook loose and my grip useless against shapes that weren't. There my knees heavy, sinking into dirt that clung and pulled, faces rising higher from the soil, their mouths opening wide all at once, releasing a sound like a groan, like the trees splitting in winter, like the world tearing at the seams. I clamped my hands over my ears, but the sound crawled through anyway, rattling my teeth, burning my brain. Shadows leaned closer, tilting their heads, their bodies twitching, and the stones flared sudden faint, light red glowing from the burned letters, pulsing like a heartbeat, and with each pulse the whisper grew, mine, 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 until it felt like the word itself was burrowing into my chest, replacing my only try to scream. But no sound came, my throat locked shut, my body shaking against the pull of the clearing. I dropped the knife and pressed my palms hard into my ears, rocking back and forth, whispering American words, like please God, please Lord, please. But the clearing swallowed those to spit them back. Empty ground buckled under me, soil splitting, cracking open, black void gaping beneath, faces peeling back like skin breaking, revealing emptiness stretching forever down. The shadows leaned closer, closer, heads bent until I swore I felt cold breath against my skin, and in that frozen breath I heard the words clear, not whispered, not hummed, not whistled, but spoken in one low voice. You belong here now. Me vision spun the clearing, turning inside out, sky folding, ground rising, stones bending over me, faces pressing closer and closer, eyes wide, mouths reaching. I knew I was standing inside something older than the trees, older than the dirt, something that wanted me not as a visitor, not as a hiker, but as part of it. Me body fought to rise, legs trembling, lungs screaming. I staggered backward, tripping out of the circle of stones, dirt clinging thick to my arms, shadows jerking forward but stopping sharp at the edge like they couldn't pass the line. I fell hard on my back, staring at them, tilting heads, twitching, necks bending to far, the whistle high, shrill, sharp. But still they didn't cross. He scrambled up, running fast, stumbling into the tree line again. The clearing at my back, but I felt it following. Not the shadows, not the whistle, but the ground itself, tugging, pulling heavy on my boots with each step, as if the forest had marked me, stamped me with its claim, and no matter where I ran, I carried it with meth trail, bent again, looping, turning, but I didn't care. I ran harder than ever, my lungs raw, my legs screaming, the sound of mine rising louder behind me like a storm chasing fastened. Even when the trees thinned and another opening appeared ahead, I knew the clearing hadn't let me go. It had only pushed me deeper. The trees thinned until the trail spilled out onto another clearing. Not round, not perfect, this one jagged, torn open as if ripped by claws. The soil black, the sky above warped in shades of gray, and red and purple like bruises spreading wide. I slowed. Breath ragged, chest raw, every inch of me shaking, but still I stepped forward. Because there was nowhere else left to go, there pressed heavy, thick, my ears popping. Like climbing a mountain, my eyes burning, tears streaming without reason, and ahead. In the center of the clearing, a shape waited, not a stone circle, not a campsite, but a gate made of wood twisted tall, higher than any tree, its beams lashed together with rope. Looked like roots stretched across like sinew, the whole frame humming. Low like a bass note carried through Barnaby boots, dragged closer even though my chest screamed. To stop, to turn back, to flee, but there was no back, no trail anymore, the trees behind. Had folded in, closing tight, my lantern weak flickered dim, and every time the flame pulsed, I saw the shadows standing there, 3 of them lying against the gate heads. Tilted, watching, waiting, the whistle started again, softer this time, sweeter, not pulling, not dragging, but inviting, warm, like a lullaby, the voices folding. Inside it, not strangers, not monsters, but people I knew, my mother calling my name. My brother laughing, old friends long gone, every memory I had turned into sound wrapping around me. Like a blanket I fell to my knees, tears burning my face because it felt so good to hear them again, so good to believe even for a second that home still waited. The soil beneath me shifted, faces rising again, their mouths moving in silence. Eyes wide, unblinking, and though no sound came from them, I understood the word run, and my heart split between their warning and the whistle, the pulse stronger, sweeter. I tried to rise, but my legs wouldn't move, my arms heavy as stone, my body sinking deeper into the ground until I felt cold earth clutching tight. Round my ankles pulling slow, the shadows moved closer, sliding smooth across the clearing surrounding me, their heads bending lower, until I felt their gaze sear through skin into bone. And when they leaned close, I saw their faces for the first time. Not blank, not hollow, but mirrors showing my own reflection, twisted, stretched eyes. Black mouth slack whispering mine, in perfect rhythm with my breathy screamed, raw broken. But the sound was gone, swallowed before it left my lips the gate. A head grown with twisting ropes snapping, and inside the frame the air shimmered bent colors, leading together into a void deeper than night. The whistle poured from it, louder, stronger voices, layering high until it felt like every person I had ever known and loved stood inside, calling me forward, arms open, wooded soil swallowed my calves. Then my knees cold, pulling, sucking deeper, the shadows leaned closer. One hand stretching long, thin fingers brushing my shoulder, colder than ice, heavier than stone, and the voice inside my skull, clearer than ever. You belong here now. He clawed at the dirt nails, breaking blood mixing with soil, faces screaming beneath my hands, but my body kept sinking. Chest, waist, ribs, the gate pulsing brighter, humming louder, every heartbeat matching mine until I couldn't tell where I ended. It began, my mind splitting, spinning, the whistle turning sharp into one last word, stay. thought of the old man at the sign, his warning, his eyes hollow, his whisper, don't answer when it calls, and I clenched my jaw, biting my tongue hard enough to bleed, trying to hold on to one shred of myself, but the pull tore harder the soil, swallowing chest, shoulders, throat, my arms flailing, desperate as the shadows leaned fully over me, their faces mine, Minian, in the last flicker of lantern light before the flame died. I saw my own reflection staring back from the void in the gate eyes, wide mouth moving with the voices whispering mine, minute then the earth closed over me and the clearing fell silent.